interaction, like complex interaction, like
Yes,
drag and
okay.
drop and.
Excellent question. First of all, I always love questions that are, you did a nice job, but. Because then you're going to get a good question. Um, the um, You said everybody wants rich internet applications with lots of interaction, okay? And that, yes, you went, well, not quite. This is the problem. We who are technically adept like rich internet, um, there's another layer that likes lots of function but a very simple interface. And then there's another one who wants get the function out of here. That almost sounded like a dirty word. Get the function out of here. I just want something simple. And I'll go back to the iPod. The iPod spread like wildfire because it didn't have all those features. And the iPhone really worked where the Microsoft operating system didn't catch on with a much broader audience because it was very simple to use and it didn't have all of the things that you can do in say the Windows phone, and you couldn't have multitasking. You couldn't be jumping between apps easy and all this kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, when they added multitasking to the iPhone, they actually did it in a way where you can completely ignore it and it never shows up. But those who really want to do it can do it. And that was very smart because most people just really don't want, they can't deal with it. So the key is that we don't make, if we made all of the internet look like this, everybody, most of us in the room who are more technical would run screaming from the room like, oh, come on now, this is the slow way of doing it. I want it so that I can do everything all at once. But that's the thing. That's the ideal about personal preference, is that you and I see this, and Grandma sees this. Grandma never wants to see this in a million years. And you and I don't want to see this in a million years. Except maybe when we get home really late and we really had more than we should and we really can't deal with this. But what you're familiar with is what you're familiar with. So that's the whole thing about personalization, is not to make the world look like this, but to make it look like this for the people who want it to look like this, which is I'm sorry for those of you who can't see the screen, I'm doing this and this. So this is the very simple, where there's 3 buttons down the side: email, photo album, contact book, and then there's, on the right side, there's just one of those objects. And when you click on the button on the left, that object expands on the right, and when you click on another one, that one shrinks and the other one expands. Nothing comes, nothing goes, and there's nothing else around except those simple 3 things: email, photo album, and the contact book for contacting people. So that's sort of the idea. So yes, you're right. This is what people want, or even more, they want this. The more buttons, the more screen space. We now have, smaller and smaller screens, tinier and tinier, so you can get more and more on there. And this is my screen. That's actually a picture of my screen. That's the world I live in, only I usually have 4 more windows open. So I don't want to live in this world, and I don't want to live in this world, because they're not big and parallel enough for me. But it's a lot easier to live in these worlds for different people.
But do you think that the people that is not able to use, for example, normal Gmail, is able to customize the Gmail interface to look like the contact book?
Oh, absolutely not. The people who need the very simple interface can't create it themselves. But the people who need an automatic transmission instead of a standard transmission can't create the transmission themselves either. The question isn't whether or not the people will be able to make their own, but whether or not we talk to them, work with them, and then those of us who can deal with the complexity can use all of our complexity and power to create interfaces which are simpler. Remember the car, You know, it's really simple. So how many people here remember that when you used to turn on your television, you used to have a vertical hold and a horizontal hold and fine tuning, and nobody? Yeah, a few of us. Okay. When we grew up, when you turned the television on, you got lines horizontally, and you had to play with it just right. Now I'm getting some more head nods, and to get the head straight, and then it would roll. So it would roll vertically, like frames, like a movie out, and then you'd play with the vertical hold until finally it would lock. And then it would be all fuzzy, and so you'd turn to a channel, and then you'd tune back and forth. Often you had to change the rabbit ears, and yet finally you'd get the signal that you could watch. And now there's none of those things, because we've created more and more sophisticated circuits that will automatically lock on to really terrible signals, and they will phase lock loops to zoom in on the signals. And so by adding just layers and layers of complexity, none of which any of us could do ourselves, we were able to create a television set that's so complicated that it's simple. And then we lost our way, and we started putting more and more stuff, and now the interfaces are so complicated again that we can't do it. My favorite quote was from, I'm blocking on his name, he invented C++, and he said, you know, I always dreamed of the day when my computer would be as simple to use as my phone. It's now arrived. I can't use my phone either. So instead of making everything simpler, we actually made the simple things we had really complex. And now is the time for us to leave it complex for those who want it complex. It is not that, oh, we should make everything simple. But we have the opportunity today with this personalization to do something we never did before. And that is make it complex for the complex, but have a simple for the simple. And you know what? I think that the marketers will be amazed at how many people turn the simplicity knob all the way over toward far from where they thought it would be. And their sweet spot of the really complex is going to be there. The other thing that'll be interesting is the number of people who turn it all the way over there and then slowly over time inch it back up. You know, if you get it simple enough, you can figure out how to use, and then slowly over time you can deal with a little bit more complexity after you're familiar with something. But a lot of the people that we're trying to work with and help cannot deal with it if you give it to them full blast. Turn it down and then slowly bring it back up. And you had the final question?
Sorry for squeezing you too much today, but we are taking advantage that you are
I'll
here.
stay here all day.
Really, my last question is just to clarify for all, which is the MPII, and I would like to know if this is just an idea, if that is your thought is to be a cluster of projects, or if you are thinking to MPII as a legal entity to coordinate everything.
We say NPII, and it's really NPIIs. Because one of the things, we were actually going to talk about it being a global GPII to start with. But there's no global entity that's going to then create this thing and fund it, because that's not the way we work. Even in Europe, you fund research at a European level, but all your service delivery is back at your country level, national level. So what we think is that in the end, after we've done all the research and proven that this thing works, that each country is going to be building an NPII. And they will then federate them to form the global. Now you may federate them to form a European and federate them to be a global, etc. So I think we're talking about NPIIs that link together to form a global public inclusive infrastructure. I think that the global public inclusive infrastructure will be a coalition. I think at some point it's useful to have an organization, a coalition of people that are working to just make this stuff all work together, as we're doing already. NPII.org is a website and a group of people. It's not There is no organization, there's no legal entity. We are going to be forming Raising the Floor was another website that is the same kind of a thing, and actually it was the base from which NPII grew. Only NPII is just infrastructure, and Raising the Floor talks about open source software as well. We will be incorporating Raising the Floor so that we can coordinate. So if somebody said, well, we want to provide some funding to help you coordinate your efforts, there's no place to give the funding to. So we'll be incorporating in Switzerland, and because it is an international organization, has international people, and so we want to establish it in a place where it's clear that it's not anybody's organization, it's all of our organizations. And NPII, I believe, will continue to just be that. It's a place that we can get together to work on this. So I think that the NPII concept will advance as a series of projects. I hope that we are able to get, my vision is that at some point we get some joint funding. So we get European and American, or United States and Canada funding, and we can get together to actually, because some of this infrastructure is going to take a lot of concerted effort, and we can't do it as little bitty projects. And I think there's going to be at some point, some maintenance that needs to be done. One of the things we need to be very careful of is that we don't think of this as being a project. And it gets funding, and at the end of the funding, what happens? And we have lots of projects that do that, but if this is infrastructure, you can't have roads that once you've laid them all, nobody pays any attention to them because it'll all come undone again. So NPII is really NPIIs, and right now the NPII group, if you will, is just a bunch of people. It's not a formal organization. And we see it's advancing. The first is the work that we were doing out of our center, probably and then the work that Canada is doing, but that's within the domain of open education resources, and I think some of the people in the room here are part of that. And so they've done a lot of some essential work. I think the next big piece is going to be that which is funded by the European Commission. And hopefully that will be the group that we've been talking about forming, that would be 5.5A. And then we have some money penciled in the budget in the United States for 2012, a large amount of money to go to this general topic, not specific as to how to do. And so I think that's good, because this other one will be 2 years in, or a year and a half in, so it'll be a nice synergy. And then I think the European Commission has 2013 as a timeline for that they're now trying to lay the patterns for, and so we are independently and together we are talking to about trying to make sure that we have a large commitment commensurate with the size of trying to do something. A number of people have said, this is a grand vision, but oofta, to use a little European term. If you're from Norwegian stock, it is a big, difficult, complicated thing. And so again, we need to figure out how to slice it down so that it's big and complicated, but we have very concrete, doable parts on our way to, ever harder parts to do, and to build this infrastructure. So I think it's going to come in phases, and then after we've proven it, it's going to be the case of individual countries saying, yes, it's there, yes, it's proven, our people have been using it in these labs. When the heck can you get it out of your lab and get it to our whole country instead of only the small places that you've deployed it? And that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. So it is definitely a concept that's going to be brought to realization through a lot of individual efforts.